Hello everyone, this is Jan with Photography for Beginners, and in this video we're gonna present and I'm gonna show you the one of the first thing you see when you start working in Lightroom, which is the import module. So what happens when you put your card in the computer, and what are the different options you have here at your disposal that's gonna have an impact on your organization and the way you're gonna import your picture. So let's start with just putting the card in the computer. That's the way I do it. You could plug your camera with the USB port. You could use an external reader. You could use the internal reader that you might have in your computer. It doesn't really matter. Personally, I like to just put the card in the computer and import to Lightroom from the card directly. You know, some people might tell you that it's better to copy the files first on your computer and then import from here. I never saw the point of doing this, but I can understand why people want. So I'm just gonna put the card in there, and if you have Lightroom open, when you put the card in the computer, it's gonna detect the card and it's gonna bring you directly to the import dialog. So that's what you get when you put the card. It automatically selects the source device here, which is my the name of the card, Nikon D750, and it usually remembers most of the options that you had before. So the first time you import, you might tweak and set different settings. The next time you import, it's gonna remember that and it's gonna let you import the same way. Okay, so by default, all the pictures in the card are selected. What I personally do is I import everything. I don't start selecting pictures in that dialog, mostly because it's not really something you get the decent resolution. I could be doing this, but usually what I do is I just import everything with the options that I like, and after that only I'm gonna flag the pictures. That's gonna be the subject of another video. I call down my pictures and how I eliminate the bad shots and flag the good ones, etc. So we're gonna see that later. So everything's selected. I personally use the DNG format, so I always use copy as DNG for different reason. It doesn't really matter that much. If you feel more comfortable keeping the native format of your camera, you can use the copy option. What it's gonna do, copy as DNG and copy, they're gonna copy from the card to your computer in the directory that is selected here on the right. So I usually use always the same directory. In my case, this is a directory on a remote server. You could be doing the import to your local disk or an external drive. It doesn't matter. That's gonna be the same option. That's gonna be remember when next time you import, you usually want to keep the same disk as a destination. Always build the one previews. That's so that I don't have to do it later. When I browse from image to image, it's going to take more time to generate the preview. I do that in advance. I really like the smart previews setting. We're gonna talk about that later, maybe in another video. I suggest that you check that box. It takes a little bit more space in your catalog file, but it's worth it, I think. Don't import suspected duplicates. There's usually rarely problem with this. When you reuse a card, for example, you did not format, it's going to detect automatically that some images have been imported already. You might want to make a second copy to a backup drive, for example. And what I like to do is right away add to a collection. And I make a new collection usually, and I name it, whatever, photo walk, and that was yesterday, so 0 to 14, for example. And I usually organize in collection sets. I'm gonna put it in that one, and what I check is the sync with Lightroom mobile checkbox here. That's something that's very important in my workflow. if you have Adobe Lightroom Photographer Pack, or if you have any CC version, I suggest that you use that feature because it's really cool, especially if you want to work from mobile. And there's some stuff for which the mobile platform is really great. Okay, let's just create. It's been created in my collection here. So as you can see here on the top, you have different options to do your import, and that's very important to understand. So copy as DNG first converts the image as the Adobe Open RAW format. So that's a format that's open, that's documented by Adobe, and what they do is Lightroom reads the .nef or .cr2 files from your camera, if you're Nikon or Canon, and it converts it to its own format. There's no, you don't lose any quality. You keep everything that makes a raw file, so it's not, it keeps the native data of the sensor. That's very important to understand. You could use the copy option, which makes a copy of the original file from the card to the location that you specify here. So it's going to be the exact same file. Move will take the file, copy it, and remove it from the card. You might not feel comfortable doing this because, you know, if anything goes wrong, I personally like to format the card in camera when I put the card back. And add, to my opinion, is the most dangerous option, because what it does, it just links the file that you have on your card and it references it into the Lightroom catalog. That means that if you remove the card, the original are no longer there, but Lightroom might have previews and smart previews, and you don't necessarily realize that the originals are no longer there. And you're going to put the card back in the camera, and you're going to format your card, and you're going to cry, you know, a couple of days later. It's a very good option if you're used to copy the files on your computer first, somewhere on an external drive, for example. You keep your files organized because you like to make your own folders, you name the folders, you put the files in that folder, and then you drag and drop, or you use the import dialog here in Lightroom to add the files to your catalog, because you know you already have these files somewhere on your drive. That's not going to go anywhere, and you reference these files to your catalog. But that's the differences between these options is very important to understand. So there you go. That's a really simple dialog. You have the source here. You're usually going to select your card. You have some options in the checkbox here on each image where you pick which one you're going to import. Sometimes it seems like it's ordered, you know, randomly. You might want to select order by capture time here. You get to choose all the photos or display just the new photos that are detected. And these options, I hope, makes more sense to you now. And what's very important as well is to understand where your photos are stored on the computer. Usually, many people, they just, glance over that dialog and just hit the import button and be done with it. But then when it comes to time, for example, if the catalog gets corrupted, or if they want to, give the raw files to someone, or the original files to someone, they don't even know where the pictures are. So that's how you know where the pictures are. When you click that button, you can select another location, put in another destination if you want to use some other place, or use some standard ones. By default, if I remember correctly, your photos are going to be in a Lightroom directory inside your standard pictures folder. That's a Mac. It's going to be the same ID on Windows. And I think we covered that dialog. I hope it makes more sense to you now. You just click the import button. Just another thing, what I like to do when I import my image, I apply a preset. I have a preset that is named default preset here. And what it does is automatically check a couple of options you have in the develop module, like the lens correction and chromatic aberration. I always check that by default. So I saved it from the development dialog to a preset, and I just select that preset here. And once it's selected once, it's going to be reapplied for every for all the next all the imports from now on. You might want. I personally like to keep. I let Lightroom organize my picture. So I just specify the destination here, and it's just gonna organize by date. So it's gonna make a directory for each new day, and it's gonna put the images into that directory. I don't care much about organizing the pictures by folder, by event, and naming the folder. I keep my files organized in Lightroom by organizing them by collection, and use the tags, use the colors, use the flags. The way it's organized on the disk, I don't really care. And that's pretty much it. I think we've seen all the important parts of that dialog, which is just going to click import. And there you go. So now the import starts. It's going to take a lot of time because it needs to copy all the photograph. It needs to create the 1.1 previews. It needs to create the smart previews. But the idea when I import my picture, I just walk away, let the computer do its stuff, and come back when it's over. Remember, I checked that box to synchronize with Lightroom Mobile earlier. What it's gonna do is that when everything's over, when all the previews are built and it's done with the job, it's gonna send all the pictures to the cloud. So later on, when I have some free time, I'm just gonna grab my iPad and I'm just gonna start calling my pictures. I'm gonna apply the flags. I might do some crops, test different stuff. I'm not gonna do the heavy editing part from the iPad, but I'm gonna do a lot of the sort and flag and glance at my work and then eliminate what's wrong and maybe flag what might be worth editing, that kind of stuff. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope now the import module makes more sense to you. As usual, ask any question that you want in the comments and I will answer them. Bye bye.